For a woman, giving birth is a life-threatening endeavor, and what follows can feel like a battlefield. On days when you hear words that feel like a final blow, many probably secretly vow revenge, don't they? I was reminded of an unnecessary past when my ex-husband contacted me after several years. At that time, my husband was 33, I was 28, and our daughter was a newborn. It had just been a grueling birth. I struggled to recover after childbirth and only left the hospital a little over a week later, then battled with first-time parenting at my parents' house for a while. 2 months later, back at home, a statement was made as soon as I walked through the door. After a long time, seeing you, I can't think of you as a woman anymore. Giving birth really turns a woman into a mother, doesn't it? Indeed, I had gained weight compared to before my pregnancy, and my once decent figure had significantly changed, something I was painfully aware of and quietly shocked about. Yet, hearing such words left me deeply hurt, speechless in response. These words, even years after our divorce, are etched in my memory, unforgettable. Consequently, our marital life ceased, and we even started sleeping in separate rooms, a relief for me, exhausted from childcare. After that, my ex-husband would come home smelling of alcohol nearly every night and would find any reason to go out on weekends. This might have started while I was still staying at my parents' house. One day, a cabaret club business card turned up among the laundry. He wasn't going there every day, but it seemed like a weekly routine. Being a young man in a major corporation, holding a title of assistant section chief, he wasn't struggling financially. So, as long as he wasn't going overboard, I remained silent. However, about 6 months later, I discovered he was having an affair. It was completely accidental, during a trip to a shopping center to buy diapers and milk. While searching for a parking spot, I crossed paths with a car driven by my husband. Doubting what I saw, I hurriedly followed, confirming it was his car by the license plate. It was a weekday, he should have been at work. If it were work-related, he would have used a company car. Something felt off, so I kept my distance and followed. I could tell someone was in the passenger seat, but couldn't see who. At a stoplight, the passenger leaned over, touching my husband's shoulder and revealing her face. It was a woman, young-looking, with striking straight hair. They drove on and eventually entered a hotel. The whole event was recorded by my dashcam. I felt a mix of shock and a resigned, I knew it. After passing the hotel, I stopped at a nearby convenience store, dazed. Already overwhelmed with household chores and childcare, and with an ex-husband who never helped, living freely on his own terms. Ever since he said he couldn't see me as a woman, I had suspected that something like this might happen eventually. Still, facing the reality was different, and I couldn't reconcile my feelings. Believing it wasn't right to keep such a man as a father figure around, I decided to divorce. I thought simply divorcing him wouldn't be enough to truly defeat him. I plotted every kind of retaliation. First, I focused on improving myself. I had been letting myself go, consumed by housework and parenting, neglecting style and makeup. Even if it disrupted my schedule, I managed the hectic parenting perfectly, while exercising and dieting to regain my pre-pregnancy body and appearance. I made a point to dress well and apply makeup properly. It was challenging with so much to do, but over a year, I gradually returned to my pre-pregnancy weight, and my figure improved significantly compared to before my pregnancy. Thanks to fashion and makeup, I felt more vibrant, making walks with my young daughter more enjoyable. However, revealing these changes to my ex-husband would lessen the impact at the time of divorce. So, I deliberately wore oversized sweats around him to conceal my transformed figure. He was so absorbed in his own world, only coming home to sleep, that he never noticed. Thinking he was foolish, I pretended not to know about his affair and continued with my daily life. Then, I decided to gather concrete evidence of his infidelity. Since there was only so much I could do on my own, I dipped into my personal savings to hire a private investigator and thoroughly collected evidence. My savings were nearly depleted, but I convinced myself it was for the divorce and turned a blind eye to the dwindling balance. Eventually, I found out that his affair was with a coworker, a typical office romance. She was 21 years old, a whole decade younger than my ex-husband, young and pretty, just as he liked. I didn't consult a lawyer right away, thinking it wasn't the right time yet. Meanwhile, I dabbled in freelance writing and drawing, gradually increasing my income. In the beginning, it was very little, but I set a goal to earn enough to support my daughter and me by the time of the divorce and worked tirelessly towards it. My efforts paid off, and by the time of the divorce, I was earning nearly $3,000 a month. Throughout this, my ex-husband continued his carefree lifestyle, showing no interest in our daughter. So, I didn't bother updating him about her growth. Regarding living expenses, since we used an online bank, a fixed amount was automatically transferred to my account every month, so I had no financial troubles. I used that for our living expenses and saved all of my earnings. One day, unusually, my ex-husband was relaxing at home. By then, I was thinking, why doesn't he go out? He's just in the way. He was looking at a magazine on the sofa, occasionally commenting, "This girl is really cute." I knew it, he likes young women. Peeking at the magazine, I realized it was a women's fashion magazine. Wondering why he would buy and read something like that, he showed me the magazine with a smirk and said, "If you were as thin and cute as her, you might look like a woman." He added, "If she were my wife, I'd be happy every day." Reality is harsh. Clearly provoking me. I was so irritated, I almost revealed that I had lost weight, but I managed to hold back. Ignoring his words completely, he left the magazine ostentatiously on the table and went out. The thought that he stayed home just to say such unpleasant things boiled my blood, but playing with my daughter soothed me. Then my daughter turned 3 and it was time for her to start kindergarten. I thought it would be good for securing time for my work and for her to start making proper friends. I discussed this with my ex-husband, but he seemed uninterested, as if it didn't matter to him. By then, 2.5 years had passed since I found out about the affair. I researched and found that the statute of limitations for claiming compensation for infidelity is 3 years, so the timing was perfect. The affair was still ongoing, so I was excited about the potential compensation. I managed to gather all the necessary documents for my daughter's enrollment, and fortunately, she was accepted into our first-choice kindergarten, a wonderful place. Although it's a bit far from our current home, it's close to my parents' house, ensuring convenience even after the divorce. My parents' house was about a 20-minute drive away, and the kindergarten about 15 minutes. I informed my parents that I planned to divorce after securing the kindergarten spot. They weren't surprised, as I had been telling them about my ex-husband for the last 2.5 years, and were rather saying, "Finally, you're getting a divorce." My in-laws' house is about a 30-minute drive in the opposite direction from my parents' home. I knew I had to talk to them too, but I decided to do it on the day itself. This was to prevent them from informing my ex-husband in advance. With the divorce, I would have to move out of the house owned by my ex-husband. In the 2 months before starting kindergarten, I had to find a new place and gradually move our things, leading to hectic days. I considered staying with my parents, but I wanted to prove that we could live independently, so I looked for a place between home and kindergarten. I also consulted a lawyer about alimony and child support, finalizing my divorce preparations. The divorce would be slightly complicated because it was happening after the kindergarten entrance, but that was a minor issue. I figured that once she started kindergarten with a new surname, only adults would know about the name change. By the time I made mom friends, they wouldn't find out that it is my maiden name. I had informed my ex-husband about the upcoming kindergarten entrance ceremony about half a month in advance, but he refused to attend. He didn't listen at all, citing work as his reason. I didn't particularly want him to come since we were divorcing. On the day, I told him to come home early, but he just mumbled something and left for work as usual. Afterwards, my daughter and I got ready and went to the ceremony. It went smoothly, and I had a brief interaction with other moms. After finishing, we went straight to my parents' house, where my daughter enjoyed her favorite meal with everyone except my ex-husband. In the evening, I called my in-laws to inform them I was coming over to talk. Upon arrival, they seemed puzzled. Caught off guard, I apologized briefly and, once ushered into the living room, I broached the subject. "I'm sorry for the suddenness, but I've decided to get a divorce." My in-laws were shocked by the abrupt announcement and asked for an explanation. I presented the substantial evidence I had gathered, revealing his affair that started before and continued after our daughter's birth. The records also included how he neglected our family, something I had never mentioned before. My in-laws had been in the dark about all of this, not suspecting a thing since they had only seen their son with our daughter. They were speechless, silently going through the evidence. After reviewing everything, my father-in-law finally spoke. "It's our fault for raising a son who would do such things. We're deeply sorry." Both he and my mother-in-law apologized deeply. "Why didn't you tell us earlier? If we had known, we could have done something," my father-in-law lamented. Although his point was valid, I explained that I had resolved to divorce the moment I discovered the affair. I confessed that, although I wanted to get revenge for his actions and words, I hadn't wanted to trouble my in-laws, who had always been kind to me. "I'm sorry for not confiding in you. It's sad you didn't rely on us, but we respect your decision. May I ask one favor?" he said. I nodded. "My wife and I adore our granddaughter. We'd like to keep seeing her after the divorce. We'll sever ties with our son. You and your daughter are enough for us." This was unexpectedly heartwarming. I happily agreed to his request. After some light conversation, I left for home. As expected, my ex-husband wasn't back yet. After several unreturned calls, he finally called back. "Where are you? I told you to come home early this morning." "I'm at work. Can't come home yet." "Working? Or enjoying your time with some young woman?" I retorted. He was silent, surprised by my words. I insisted he come home immediately and hung up. An hour later, he returned, visibly annoyed. When I asked, "You're late, aren't you?" with my arms crossed, my husband looked surprised. It had been a long time since we had a face-to-face conversation, and he noticed for the first time that I had regained my figure, evident from the way my clothes now fit my body. "You've lost weight. You did it for me, right? With that look, you can pass as a woman." What he said next was a mockery of me. If I may say so, my husband's appearance had also changed considerably over these 3 years. Over the past 3 years, he too had changed, indulging in affairs, gaining weight, his suit tight, his face greasy. A middle-aged man, the epitome of a womanizer. "What, you wanted to show off your body," he sneered, sitting on the sofa. I laid out the divorce papers. "What's this, a joke?" he laughed. "We're getting divorced. I don't need you anymore. You think you can live without me? What can a housewife do?" I silenced his mockery by showing him my earnings as a freelancer. "I can support us without you. This is enough for my daughter and me." At that moment, I presented nearly a year's worth of statements showing a monthly income of about $3,000. Even after seeing that, my ex-husband just scoffed. "These are fake, right? Anyone could make these. If you really want to fool me, show me your bank book." So, I fetched my bank book and opened it for him to see. "This proves it, doesn't it?" Looking at the deposit history, he was visibly shocked. I then confronted him with evidence of his infidelity. "There are many reasons for our divorce, but what decided it was your affair? There's plenty of evidence, so you can't deny it, can you? You can forgive a little cheating. You stopped caring about yourself, so what choice did I have? It's all your fault. I gave birth to our child. Just because my body changed doesn't justify your affair. You wouldn't know since you never helped with childcare. I was so busy with it that I hardly had time for makeup. I couldn't even keep mealtimes consistent, and every time I thought our child was asleep, she'd wake up crying. She'd do something dangerous the moment I looked away, and I couldn't even use the bathroom in peace. Skipping makeup was the least of my worries." "That's just an excuse. There are women at my office who manage to look put together while juggling childcare. That's because they have supportive husbands. It's absurd that I can't expect help from you, even though you're here." Our argument escalated, and I vented all my pent-up frustrations. "To think you could cheat and not expect a divorce is naive. How much self-confidence do you have? The only value you have now is bringing home money for living expenses." He was speechless, perhaps hurt by my words. I'm more than just money." "Can you say that while looking in the mirror?" I laughed derisively, handing him a mirror and a men's fashion magazine. Look at yourself. How can anyone see a man in you? Abandoning your family for an affair? Don't make me laugh. I don't need a man who lets his desires lead him astray. Having said all I wanted, I left a lawyer's business card and suggested we communicate through them from now on, putting an end to our marriage. Later, the lawyer settled on a divorce settlement of $30,000 in alimony and child support payments. The divorce papers were filed successfully. I also demanded alimony from the woman he cheated with, which she paid in full. My ex-husband, having squandered his savings on affairs and drinking, begged his parents for help, but they turned him away, saying, "You are no longer our son." I reported his affair to his company, resulting in his demotion and transfer. Unable to bear the shame, he resigned. The woman he had an affair with cut off all contact with him once she realized he had neither authority nor money left and fled from him and his company. Returning to the present, my ex-husband, having lost everything, recently contacted me after years, struggling to get by. "I want to see our daughter's elementary school entrance ceremony. I ended things with you years ago," I said, and hung up the phone. By the way, the entrance ceremony was last year. The reason I married my ex-husband was that we loved each other. But it seems he only loved me for my looks. I'm sure he remembers my birthday, but I doubt the reverse is true. I didn't consult his parents because I was determined not to divorce until I could show that I was independent and didn't need him. Thanks to that, I now earn a decent living as a freelancer and have financial peace of mind from the alimony and child support.